Sounds good. Good morning and welcome to Anime Boston 2020. How excited is everyone? 2022, good God. Off to a good start here, aren't we? It's been a while. I think we all wish it was 2020. We all got gypped in 2 years of Anime Boston. But how excited is everybody to be back here at Anime Boston? I want to thank everybody for coming to my first ever panel here at Anime Boston. My name is Doug Engler. I'm the host and creator of Anime-Zing Radio. We are a live 2-hour talk show that's anime and pop culture based. I've been doing podcasting between anime and paranormal for between 15 to 20 years. So I've experienced a lot of interesting stuff. I came up with this panel as I want it to be interactive for anybody who's interested in doing podcasting or internet radio. If you have questions, I can help you with some of the experiences I've had. Nothing has gone smoothly through any of the transitions of paranormal or the anime talk radio side of things. A lot of interesting stories that we've had. Started Anime-Zing Radio back on April 6th of 2014. And it's been a wild ride. We've switched networks 3 times. Started off on a small network called Hazy Radio. Jumped from that to Blog Talk Radio for about 6 years, and then last August we finally got smart, added video, and switched to YouTube. So you can find us on YouTube by searching Anime-Zing Radio. We're trying to hit a goal where we are trying to get to 200 subscribers. Once we hit that mark, one lucky subscriber will be able to be entered into a contest, or there's going to be a contest where one lucky winner will be a guest co-host for a future voice actor interview. We are the only show that I know of to this point that offers fans a chance to talk to a voice actor for 2 hours, free of charge. We just gave away that prize to one lucky winner from FujiCon a couple weeks ago. They're going to be joining us for a interview with Christy Rothrock, who many of you might know her as the voice of Alulu in Dragon Maid S. So, Anime-Zing Radio, I started this as a way to give back to the anime community. We don't just focus on voice actors, we bring on a lot of guests, cosplayers, artists, musicians, gamers, basically anybody you can find in the convention community. And it's been, like I said, it's been a very wild ride. A lot of different networks, a lot of challenges. Trying to figure out, like when I first started the show, I was already a part of Hazy Radio, doing paranormal talk radio. So that was an easy jump just to start something new. But I learned early on from helping out another, co-hosting on another show, that trying to find guests and keeping up content wasn't always easy. It's a lot of planning goes into it, even though I do the show 100% improv. But it's rewarding in its own right. Anybody out here ever thought about doing your own podcast? Awesome, a lot of you have. But if you're going to get into the podcasting side of things, do your research to find out what network you feel is best for you. There are so many platforms, there are so many places out there that offer, good coverage, join off on multiple different networks, things of that nature. You also got to make sure that you promote yourself. And I think that's one thing where a lot of podcasts that, a lot of people have the idea, they start them, they last maybe a year, and then either the person loses interest, they don't see the growth that they expected, or something happens and they give up on it. If you really want a podcast, my suggestion is first, make sure you're covering something you're passionate about. People know when you're passionate about the subject you're talking about. They can tell scripted as opposed to unscripted. The listeners are, we have some of the greatest listeners who tune in on a regular basis, very knowledgeable about anime, because Lord knows I screw up plenty of times. If you ever watch any other shows, or listen to any of the old shows, you hear me butcher the names of characters, even the voice actors sometimes. The fun part about live radio is when you mess up, everybody gets to share in the laughter with you. We are not one who edits the shows. We typically are, we're not doing a live show this weekend because obviously we're here at Anime Boston. I live about 6 hours north, so I won't be home in time to do the show on Sunday, but yeah, it's It's interesting. Like I said, this is my first panel at Anime Boston. It's the only second time I've done the podcasting panel. So, but I wanted to give people who are interested in the podcasting, trying it out if you haven't done it before, or even if you have, and you have suggestions or things that you've learned. I know there's other people out there who would like to hear the advice that you have. So does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. The tools that I use, I have a basic home setup, just my regular desktop. We broadcast through StreamYard, which is where the video platform comes in. With Blog Talk Radio and with Anime-Zing Radio, we relied on an external broadcaster, and we would bring guests on via contact numbers. Anime-Zing Radio, we were able to use Skype. Blog Talk, Skype didn't work with very well, so we ended up having to get a lot of contact numbers. With StreamYard, the thing I really like about that is, if I was going to have you as a guest on the show, I could add you on Facebook or an email. I send you a link, you click the link, just follow the instructions. I see you on my screen pop up on the bottom, and I can bring you up onto the show. Also, we have a live interactive chat room, and when the guests, or when the people in the chat have questions for the guests, I can click the chat, I can click the chat question, and it pops up on screen so everybody can read it. And I think that's something that's important too, is I really enjoy interacting with the fans. It kind of excites me, because even after 8 years of doing an anime talk radio, I get nervous before every show. Those nerves have never gone away. And it doesn't matter if I'm interviewing Monica Rial or if I'm interviewing a local cosplayer. Because I'm a very big believer in everybody deserves to be spotlighted. Cosplayers work just as hard as the voice actors. In some cases even harder, because you have day jobs. A lot of you make your own costumes. A lot of you, people know the Yaya Hans and the big name cosplayers. But every cosplayer you see at Anime Boston has probably worked just as hard as they have. They just don't have the recognition. Same thing with the artists in Artist Alley, the vendors and things of that nature. So I've made it a point to showcase the entire community of anime and the conventions. Because, like I said, yes, a voice actor is going to draw in a huge crowd, but you're not always going to be able to get a voice actor every week. And listening to, unfortunately, my two co-hosts couldn't be here to help with the panel. One lives in North Carolina, the other one's at work and won't be here until, she said, hopefully by 5. But, when you're trying to set things up, and I live in northern New York, like a half hour from the Canadian border, so when we're split up that wide, having the video and having the internet is a wonderful thing to be able to connect and keep things going in real time. And now we can bring on the voice actors with a link, as opposed to trying to get, personal phone numbers or things of that nature like we had to in the past, which it amazes me. In the 8 years of doing Anime-Zing Radio, I've had over 60 different voice actors on the show. We've had, our first ever show, we had Tia Ballard. We've had Todd Habercorn and Jeremy Inman, Anthony Bowling, J. Michael Tatum, Brittany Karbowski, and we were also the first official interviews of voice actors like Megan Shipman, Morgan Berry, Stephen Fu, Danny Chambers. So getting to find all of these up-and-coming voice actors and following their career along as we've continued to grow has been a wild ride. It's been kind of neat to see when you find a voice actor who you really enjoy, and it's a name that you don't know. Really recent one was Giovanni Cruz, who's more of a Hollywood actress and voice actress. But she was in Show by Rock, Masha My Resh as Himiko, and we could tell it was a voice we didn't know before. And our last show on Blog Talk Radio, we actually did a Masha My Resh special, where we were very fortunate enough to get Macy Ann Johnson, the voice of Holland, Giovanni Cruz, the voice of Himiko, Emmy Lowe, the voice of Delmi, and Lindsay Shepard, the voice of Rihuyu, and Megan Shipman, who directed it, all on the show at the same time to do a special. So when you're able to bring all these people together, and unlike pre-COVID Japan, where everybody, I know there's always that debate of dub versus sub. Why does the subs always sound better than dubs? In Japan, the voice actors record in one studio at the same time. So you could have as many as 10 voice actors on 4 microphones just rotating in and out, where in the US, they record one at a time, and then then they rely on the sound engineers and everybody to merge everything together. So that's why it sounds a little bit more different English as opposed to the Japanese. But, you know, I think it would be neat if they could get everything together like that. I don't know how soon before we could even see. I know Funimation is slowly opening their doors to allowing in-studio recording again. A lot of the voice actors are still recording from home. So when there's delays and things like that, I mean, it's amazing how the anime community or the anime companies have adapted because of COVID. I know when it first hit, we all sat there going, okay, well, anime has stopped for a couple of weeks while studios figure out how to do this, and I'm sure we all have seen how big it's grown even since COVID. I mean, there's what, like 30, 40 shows every season that comes out. It's amazing. And going back to the radio show side of things, the jump to YouTube, I like the addition of the video as opposed to audio. There's millions of podcasts out there. Less than 20% have video. So if it's something you're interested, if you're comfortable being in front of a camera, it might be a way to go because you'll be a part of the minority, which may make you stand out more. Plus a show like mine where I'm bringing on voice actors, you can physically see, here's Monica Rial. You're not just hearing a voice and thinking it is, but now you can physically see. If we bring a cosplayer on, we encourage them to be in cosplay. That way when we're asking about their characters or their creations, they can show off their work and things of that nature. Same thing with artists or comic creators or things of that nature. Show off your work, let people see the talent that you possess. Where the typical podcasts that are audio only, they have to promote themselves just, you know, through voice as opposed to through pictures as well. Does anybody else have any questions? Yes, in the back.
So my question is, keep on topic while having a background.
That can be very difficult because I suffer from shiny object syndrome, something fierce. And I've actually been derailed by multiple guests by much like a normal conversation. You'll have a topic you start on and within 5 minutes you're over there. And then somehow you find your way back and then you're back there. So it can be very difficult, and I have had guests who have derailed me, including some bigger name voice actors that have brought up topics that I wasn't expecting. But the important thing is to have fun with it and try to regain your composure. If you mess up and you can laugh at yourself for it, it's going to make it feel that much smoother to get back on topic. I mean, I was interviewing J. Michael Tatum one time. When he found out that I was a paranormal investigator, he started asking me questions about hunting ghosts. When you're talking to a voice actor, the last thing you expect is for them to start grilling you about something you've done, because you're more interested in the work that they've done, especially somebody on the level of J. Michael Tatum. At the same time, you know, we've had a lot of guests who come on, and not every guest you get is going to be a great guest. We've had people on the show where you ask them a question, you get a one-word answer. That's a tough interview. And before we switched to YouTube, we used to only have guests on for an hour. Going to YouTube, we've upped it to 2 hours talking with the guests. And, you know, when something like COVID hits, I didn't realize how much I depended on conventions for guests and content until we couldn't go to them anymore. You'll see a lot of shows or hear a lot of shows once because I've got over 300 episodes I need to edit and upload pre-YouTube days. And there's a lot of shows that was just me and my co-host Darren at the time trying to fill 2 hours with random nonsense. So we did a lot of top 10 lists, talking about different shows that we were watching at the time. And I've learned through my experience over the last 15 years or even more of doing the podcasting and stuff. Once you do it long enough, you're able just to get yourself back on track, no matter how sidetracked you get. It's just kind of a skill that you develop over time. And it can be very difficult, especially when first starting off. If I guarantee somebody will say something that's going to throw you off. Or something's going to happen that distracts you. And it can be very challenging to get back onto the topic. But as you keep going with it, it's going to become easier. Like I said, I still have times where doing an interview with anybody, whether it's a voice actor or a cosplayer or anything like that, that I get sidetracked, and sometimes it takes me a little bit to get back on topic. But then it's like, okay, in my head, I just reset and say, okay, it's enough about this topic. Let's talk more about you and what you're doing. And that usually, it shows the crowd that you're aware that you got off topic and you wanted to get back on focusing on the person that you have on the show. And I'm not saying every podcast needs to have guests. We have plenty of shows we've done where we've just had a topic that we talked about. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the main thing for doing your podcasting, have a subject that you're passionate about and something that you're knowledgeable about. I'm very fortunate where my wife is an artist, so I have experience in Artist Alley and working at a table. I've interviewed enough voice actors that I have a pretty good understanding of that side of things. Producing my own show and stuff like that, I have a little bit of knowledge of the technical side of stuff, not a whole lot. I'm a prime example of you don't need to be a computer whiz to do a podcast. You just need to have the drive to continue doing it. And things haven't always been smooth. When COVID did hit, there was a time that I almost ended the show because depression hit in and things of that nature. Things weren't going good, mentally wise and stuff like that. It can be daunting trying to put on a show 50 weeks a year. And every year we take off the Sundays around Christmas and New Year's just to kind of a recharge the batteries type of thing. But just about every Sunday that we're not at a convention, we're live from 8 to 10 p.m. on our YouTube channel. And we've got some great guests that are coming up. Next Sunday we have a comic artist friend of ours, Jay Moores, is going to be joining us. We've been friends with him for years. He's been a guest on the show many times, and he's got a new RPG game that he's been working on. He's got a puppet that he just had made from Bill Diamond. So a lot of stuff that's been going on with him. And after that, we're going to have Nerd Caliber on the 12th, 19th. We're going to have Christy Rothrock. When we're trying to get the guests, like I said, I try to branch out to every part of the anime and Comic-Con community. I don't want to just focus on one thing, because then you kind of neglect some of the other important aspects of these conventions. And there's so many people who can't make it to conventions for whatever reason, whether it's health-wise, whether there's nothing good in their area, stuff of that nature. So I try to use the show as a way to give people that experience of a convention without having to leave their house. I mean, not everybody's going to be able to have a chance to go to a convention that your favorite voice actor is at. But if I can have them on the show, then people all over the world can tune in to the YouTube and have a chance to ask a question of, if we get Monica on again, or if we get Brittany Karbowski on again, or something like that. And we're very fortunate enough that we do have listeners all over the world. And we have a loyal listener who's been with us for almost all 8 years, who lives out in the UK. We've had him on the show multiple times. He's joined us for shows or things like that, just having fun. So, are there any other questions? I know somebody had a question over here, but I think they just left. Yes?
What would you say is the average hourly commitment per week that you invest in coming up with content creation, filming, editing, and all that?
My average, the thing is, I've gotten to the point with the show, especially, I made the decision early this year that I was going to push AZR harder than I ever have in my life. Which is why this is already my 4th convention of the year, my 3rd one in Massachusetts. 2 weeks ago we were in Pennsylvania at FujiCon. Next month we're going to be in St. Albans at a convention that we're sponsoring. In July we have Northeast Comic Con that I'm going to be doing. Kineticon we're going to be at. August is going to be FujiCon in New Jersey, so we've got a lot of time. I typically just about every waking hour, even if I'm at one of my 2 day jobs, because I work 2 jobs outside of doing this, that I'm always trying to come up with ideas. How can I keep the show fresh? How can I find new guests? How can I, draw a bigger audience to the show? I've talked to a lot of like convention promoters and stuff like that, that it is for them to get successful, like for Anime Boston staff and the people who work these conventions, whether they're big or small, it's on their mind 24/7. This show is on my mind pretty much 24/7. If I'm at work, I work as a mechanic during the day at a dealership. If I'm working on a customer's car, if I'm doing an oil change, which I've done millions of, my mind's like, okay, who can I get on the show? How can I find contact info, things of that nature? What's a good subject? Like I'm constantly coming up, and I have 2 other co-hosts on the show that I run ideas through off of our Facebook chat about, okay, what ideas do we have? Who do we want to try to find for guests? We're looking into bringing VTubers on the show, trying to get YouTubers on the show, whether they're gamers or things of that nature. I want to branch out to more sides of the community just because I know we don't cover everything yet. And I know if we branch out, like a lot of people get thrown off because anime is in the name of the podcast. And that's where my knowledge is mostly. But I want to learn about everything. And I think if you want to be a good host for a podcast that you're going to have guests on, you've got to be open-minded and want to learn about what they have to offer. If I bring on a guest that I've reached out to people who do Kickstarters that I've never heard of, so I do a little bit of research. Weeks before they come on, I may spend an hour or 2 a week. Okay, well, what have they done? And I will have 10, 15 tabs open on the computer. If I have a voice actor on, I've got 3 tabs of just their work so that I can ask questions about certain characters. Because I guarantee you, no matter what voice actor I have on the show, I've not seen everything that they've done. I might know most of it, or some of it, but I still feel like you need to keep the knowledge there and the interest of wanting to learn. And be a sponge. Like I said, having worked in Artist Alley, we've had a table here at Anime Boston, which hats off to the people who work in the Artist Alley. Those are 12-hour days, Friday and Saturday. And you are at that table the whole time, just about. And so having the experience from that side and understanding what goes into the artists and how much work they put into it, hours and things of that nature. I'm a cosplayer. I'll be in cosplay later today as Kobayashi from Dragon Maid. So I understand the cosplayer side. So when we bring cosplayers on the show, I can ask questions based off of my experience and knowledge to give people who are interested in cosplaying but have never tried it, information of how they could get into it. And whether you make your own or you buy a cosplay, I'll bring anybody on who cosplays. Because, there's a lot of knowledge that can be put out there that, FujiCon this past, 2 weeks ago, we had 2 first-time Masquerade winners as our guests. One had never sewn before and had help from a friend. And when you can do something like that and it just brightens up and makes somebody's weekend, it makes you feel good inside. Like I don't do this to make money. I put a lot of money into it. I have 2 wonderful sponsors who donate prizes, but there's no financial income that comes in from doing the podcast, even after 8 years. I think we all would dream of being able to just sit there and talk about something you love and make money. But, the realistic thing is, I do this because I love it. I love doing the radio. I love getting to meet new people. I love coming to conventions and seeing all of you amazing people here. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming to my first ever panel at Anime Boston. This is exciting for me. And I know I can ramble on because of the nerves and stuff, but it blows my mind to see so many people back at these cons and I know cons are not at the capacity they were pre-pandemic, but they're coming back slowly, and I know I'm excited to be here. I know all of you are excited to finally be back after a 2-year hiatus to Anime Boston. And this is going to be a fun weekend. We're going to be walking around as press as well, covering the convention. There's going to be times I'm going to be stopping people for interviews in the hall, so if you see me or my wife or my co-host walking around, we have cameras or something, and you'd like to do an interview, stop us. We'd love to talk with you. You guys are the heart and soul of what makes these conventions go. You're the attendees. You are the reason that these conventions go on. So let your voices be heard, I know it's easy because a lot of us in the anime world or the convention world, we come to these to feel safe because, for so long in our lives, anime fans, gamers, stuff like that, we kept quiet. You only felt comfortable at an event like this, which there weren't many of. And now that we're here, it's like, let your voices be heard. Let's just have fun. Let's make Anime Boston 2022 the best one we've ever experienced. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, so what's your process for getting guests on your show?
Process for getting guests on the show, a lot of times, like a convention like this, you'll see me go through Artist Alley and collecting business cards, stuff like that from the artists, from the dealers. Cosplayers, I will stop and get photos of, and some cosplayers have business cards made, which I will get their card. If not, I'll hand them one of my cards and try to get contact information from them so I can reach out to them later. Watching anime, I watch it both subbed and dubbed. Obviously, it's easier to find English voice actors if you listen to their work. And like Giovanni Cruz's voice stuck out because it was a new one. So I went and did a little bit of research to find out, okay, is there an agency? Do they have a website? Things of that nature. And a lot of them, if they have a website, you can just contact them there. And most of the voice actors I've had on the show, and we've been turned down by some because they only do paid interviews or things of that nature, which I totally understand. That's how they make their money. That's how they live. Unfortunately, we're not capable of paying voice actors to come on the show at this point. But so many voice actors just love the fact that fans want to reach out and talk to them. And, prime example, Anthony Bowling does not promote himself as much as he should. He's been a guest on the show at least 8 times in the 8 years we've been going. And he always appreciates coming on the show. Like when we had our 8-year anniversary, he came on for about 30 minutes. Not because he had to, which blew me away because he had a date with his wife that night. He delayed that so he could be a part of our anniversary show, even for a little bit, and then go off on the date, it blew me away when he said that. So when you're able to just reach out to these people, because especially up and coming voice actors, they don't know that the people like their work. Outside of these conventions, and not every voice actor, Macy Ann Johnson, at the time we had her on the show, had never been to a convention, even as an attendee, let alone a guest, even though she's got a lot of anime roles. Fans don't know who she is, so they don't ask her to go to the conventions. So when a podcast like mine, or anybody who wants to start one, reaches out and says, hey, we'd love to interview you about your work, it catches them off guard and makes them feel better about what they do, because now they know people actually appreciate the work that they're doing. Because, it's like you at your day job. Unless somebody comes up and says, hey, I love the work you're doing, you're just going to think you're not affecting anybody, even though you might be affecting more people than you realize. So it's important to reach out to them, which is why I try to not just go after the big names, but I want to find the up-and-comers. Like we're talking with Kiba Walker about trying to get him on the show. He's a new name in the industry. That's one thing I've always enjoyed. You have a question?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were finished with that one. You
Good.
good? Okay. You said your show has 3 people all together. What's your secret to getting people to the outer so you can have more of a regular release schedule?
We broadcast the show live every Sunday night. So we already have a set schedule. It's been that way since I started the show 8 years ago. Sunday nights, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Before I picked up a second job, we would do periodic stuff throughout the week when we could. Obviously, 3 people in 3 different locations. One of my co-hosts works 2 jobs as well, including owns his own landscaping company, so he pulls in 60, 70, 80 hours a week sometimes. So it's not uncommon for him to actually fall asleep during the show, which has kind of become the running joke of the show now, is, oh, Darren's dead. He fell asleep, Darren is dead. He even puts it on there. He doesn't do video, but his name under there is Darren is dead. So that's just become kind of the running joke, which was part of the reason I brought on Angela as a co-host as well. I also wanted to bring on a female perspective of the anime world, and she's got very different tastes than Darren and I do. Darren and I have very similar tastes in the shows that we watch. We're both isekai trash, where she's more mecha and some of the other types. So bringing on a female point of view of the anime world and different tastes in anime of what is getting watched is going to bring in a wider audience to show that we don't just watch the isekais or certain shows. And like beyond, I laugh because most of the popular shows and shonens and stuff I don't watch. Like My Hero, I gave up in the 4th season. Attack on Titan, I saw 1 episode and knew it wasn't for me. So a lot of the really popular, Demon Slayer, I watched 6 episodes and couldn't get into it. I tried to give everything at least 3 episodes. And it's like, I have my tastes. Darren, very similar tastes to me. He watches some things that are a little different, but bringing Angela on, bringing like the mecha side of things, and she's also big into the RPG world, Dungeons and Dragons, things of that nature, and that's a community that we're trying to branch out to as well. So allowing everybody to have their own knowledge and expertise and be able to express it, I think, is an important thing as well. So we do a lot of communication, while at work, messaging each other, okay, here's ideas for the show and stuff. And, my wife's an artist, so she designed our logo, she does a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. And so we get ideas from her. She'll be like, I heard this voice actress or voice actor, try to find contact. I think they'd be good for the show. She's helped us get probably 10 of the 60 voice actors she's recommended. So it's, and the fans, you guys who tune in, if you want us to try to get somebody, throw names out there, because I'm open to if you have friends who cosplay, promote them. I'd love to have, we did a cosplayer roundtable, and unfortunately one of the cosplayers had technical issues and couldn't join us, but I think all 4 cosplayers are going to be at Anime Boston this weekend. So I'm open to bring on all sorts of people on the show, even other podcasters. That's another way of growing yourself. If you start your own show and you want to grow, invite other shows onto yours so you can cross-promote. Networking is huge in this industry, and it's something I don't think that people realize how big it is. So at a convention like this, if you're doing a podcast, go talk to Nerd Caliber. If you're doing a anime, gaming, some type of podcast that would fit into their subject matter. I have a friend who does Victory Condition Gaming, a tabletop gaming and RPG podcast. We've had them on the show. I've been a guest on their show. You're able to cross-promote on different shows. You build your audience that way. Plus, to get out to the events like this is important, to be able to talk to people and put your name out there so people know who you are, can put a face with the shows, and get a better understanding. Because I guarantee you become friends with people, they're going to be more interested in what you're doing. As opposed to, like, most of you out here have no idea who I am. And I understand that. But if I gain 1 or 2 subscribers from doing a panel like this, so that you can come on and enjoy the content that we provide, then I've done my job. I know not everybody here is going to run right out and subscribe to us on YouTube and everything. But, like I said, at the start, if we can hit 200 this weekend, then next Sunday's show, I will get every name that's a subscriber, put it on one of those randomizer wheels, and they will join us for a future voice actor interview. And I love giving back to the community like that. I've had many shows where we've had the voice actors interview cosplayers. We had a Cyan cosplayer from Anime Boston one year. We had her as a guest on the show, and I talked to Bryn April, who was the voice of Cyan from Show by Rock, and she came on as a secret guest co-host. So the cosplayer had no idea who the guest co-host was until she came on and realized she was getting interviewed by the voice actor of the character she cosplayed. You know, and it's little things like that to give back to the community that, you know, that's why I do the show. Because I love connecting people, I love seeing people happy, I love promoting and uplifting people. You know, too many times we hear the negative side of you know, media industry and things of that nature. I just want people to be happy, have fun. And that's the important thing. If you're going to do a podcast, make sure you love it. Because it's a lot of work, like any hobby. You put a lot of time, effort, blood, sweat, tears into it. But if you're not loving what you're doing, then why are you doing it? And I love doing the podcasting. I love meeting people and interacting with people. Even though it's outside of my comfort zone, I love doing it. You know, being up here is very much outside of my comfort zone. This is the largest, even though it's a small audience, this is the largest audience I've spoken in front of. Because the podcast, I'm in the comfort of my own home. And a lot of you guys, when you do podcasting, you're gonna have a setup. I use a Blue Ice microphone. I know somebody was asked about the technical side of things earlier. I have a nice Blue Ice microphone that I use that was recommended to me by some of the voice actors because I asked them what they have for home studio setups. And I have that mounted on a bookshelf beside my table, beside my computer desk. I only have one monitor because I need to upgrade the computer at some point. But much like all of us, bills keep going higher and higher and the paychecks don't. And we won't even get into the price of gas and stuff. It's more expensive where I live than it is in Boston. Yes?
So you mentioned that you're on YouTube, and I just quickly looked and I see that you have the audio-only format on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. What's your process on taking your live video and then speaking audio?
StreamYard does that for us. That's one of the cool things I found when I was making the decision to leave Blog Talk Radio after 6+ years, almost 7 years with Blog Talk, not seeing the growth that we were hoping for, and talking with other people I knew who podcasted. And StreamYard kept getting recommended. Going through StreamYard, you sign up with them. We pay a certain amount a month. Pay a little bit extra because I got the added storage for all the videos and stuff. And then you select which platforms you want it to go onto. And then they do the rest for you. So all I have to do is just sign into StreamYard. Now I have my laptop with me and microphone. I could set up in the hallway and do a live stream right in the hallway, and StreamYard will put it wherever I want to, on my Facebook page, on YouTube, on our Twitch channel, wherever we designate it to go. I just put in a title, put in when I want the show to go. Once I hit go live, StreamYard just sends it where it needs to go. Whether it's video, audio, they kind of handle all that technical side of stuff. Which they make it really easy for people who aren't technologically savvy like me. I really don't know much about computers, but you know, still be able to go out there and try to put out quality content. It's not always the easiest thing to do. And there's plenty of times when you're doing a podcast, whether you have guests on or not, it's tough. Somebody earlier was asking about keeping up with the content and keeping on topic of the show. I may, like, if we do a top 10 show, or it might be top 10 waifu, top 10 husbando, top 10 shonen or isekai or things of that nature, I'll put a lot of time and effort during the week into preparing, and I'll be like, okay, on Monday I might message the group and be like, this is what we're going to talk about this week since we don't have a guest. And then we'll work on getting a list together and figuring things out, and then go through and we'll give a small explanation. We filled up a 2-hour show just talking about a top 10 list and why we chose which characters we did. And you know, I learned early on when doing talk radio and stuff, you don't want to have much in the way of dead air. You don't realize how long 3 seconds is, 3 or 4 seconds is, until you sit there and you have to try to fill up a podcast or talk radio or something like that. If you listen to a radio in the car or if you listen to a talk show, they constantly have banter going. If there's 3 seconds of dead air, as a listener, you pick up on that because you're used to the constant noise. There's a long pause somewhere that sounds unnatural. You know, you hear that, and as you keep going, when you first start off, you're going to have a lot of bumps in the road. You don't get discouraged if you mess up a topic. Don't get discouraged if you have technical issues. Lord knows with Blog Talk Radio, it wasn't a regular show if we didn't have something go wrong. Whether it be, I had a computer that crashed twice while I was doing live shows. One time was with Morgan Berry. So we had a voice actor on the show, my computer crashed, which left my co-host and guest trying to figure out what happened, and I had to reboot the computer. We've had power outages. I mean, the technical side of things, it's gonna happen. There's stuff beyond your control. The real key to that is you've got to keep a level head. Mentally be prepared for anything. It's easy to say and hard to do. The more that you have stuff go wrong, the easier it's going to be to prepare next time that it happens. Because obviously, after something goes wrong, you're like, I could have done this better, that better. And then if it happens again, you can handle it a little bit better. That's also where being able to laugh at yourself and whatnot comes in handy. I don't know why people are trying to call me, but... Yes, sir.
So when your computer crashed, does StreamYard help you, or do you have to restart?
Fortunately for me with StreamYard, I haven't had that issue. With Blog Talk Radio, Blog Talk continued. And so they were able to, like, the fans could still listen to them talk and continue the show. When I tried to log back in, I actually had to kind of call myself back into the show. So I went from the desktop setup to calling the phone to enter it that way. StreamYard, I could just hop right back in and be able to do things easily that way. So once I'm logged into StreamYard, I'm logged in. And the cool thing is with StreamYard, if I send the link out, I can send the link to my phone. We actually did this at a convention earlier this year in Vermont, where I had the setup at our table with a camera so people could see what was going on from the table point of view. Sent the link to myself through Messenger, signed in on my phone and walked around the convention to get a second point of view so people could see this is what's going on at the convention. And that's one thing I really like about StreamYard is it is very, very easy to use. And if you want to try to get into something, it's not very expensive. Blog Talk was over $40 a month. StreamYard, I think, for the basic service is like $25. And you get like 50 hours of storage and things of that nature. Also with StreamYard, you're not limited. I broadcast live from PuchiCon on the Saturday of that convention for 3 hours from the table. And then that night did an hour live show in a panel format like this. At Vermont Sci-Fi and Fantasy Expo, I did a 6-hour live stream where some other platforms, they limit you. Like Blog Talk Radio, I had 2 hours. That's why I paid for it. So I could do a 2-hour show every day of the week, but I only had 2 hours of live broadcast time. That's what I paid for it. Where StreamYard, I could broadcast an hour here, hour there. I could do 5 shows during the day if I wanted to, spread out throughout without a time limit or a time crunch. So that's another thing that I really liked about StreamYard is being able to have the freedom to broadcast when I want to, not limited to a certain amount of time. Because we all know if you're talking with somebody and you're having a good conversation, you'll be like, oh, it's great talking with you. I gotta get running. I'll chat with you again soon, and then you start up another conversation, 5-10 minutes goes by, you realize you gotta get running again, but then somebody says something and it continues on. We've all been there where we've talked with somebody a lot longer than we should have, whether it's family, friends. At a convention setting like this, it's really easy to happen. And with Blog Talk, it's like I would have to watch the clock on the screen and be like, okay, well, we've got 5 minutes left. We've got to wrap it up. I also make it a point of anytime we have a guest on the show that they promote themselves, they promote social media, they promote where people can find them. Like I said, I don't do the show so much for my interest. I do it because I love promoting the industry, the fans, the cosplayers, and everything like that. So I try to have people promote themselves as much as I can. Because the focus for the radio show, even though I'm up here talking a lot about it, I really try not to have it be on me. I try, when I have a guest, I want the focus to be more on the guest and what they create, whether it's cosplayers, artists, comic creators, the voice actors. You know, I want them to be the main focal point of the show. Because that's why people are tuning in. They want to find out more about how did a cosplayer make certain items or things of that nature. Voice actors, obviously, we all have the questions of how do they get into it, things of that nature, and every story is amazing that we've had on. Yes?
With your particular podcast having kind of two modes of, which is internal talking and guests, what's your how do you set up your contingency plans when undoubtedly a guest has suddenly a different plan that night?
We've had, actually recently we had a guest cancel the day of the show. And at that point, I won't lie, at that point my mind goes into oh no mode. And then it's like, wait, we all watch anime. There's shows that come out every week. We'll just talk about the shows we're watching. And like I said, my show is 100% improv. I have nothing scripted. We've had many guests that have come on the show and they're like, do you have a list of questions? And I tell them, no, we're an improv show. The only question that I ask us about every guest is tell our listeners, you know, who you are and what you do, basically. And after that, I let the conversation dictate the show. So if we have a guest cancellation, depending on how much time, I have a lot of friends who usually are interested. You know, if they're able to, they'll come on last minute. If they're not able to, you know, some of the shows out right now, like Spy X Family, is fantastic. We'll talk about that because everybody, me and Angela are both just about up to date on that. Darren has yet to start it because of his work schedule, but he's going to catch up on that. But usually we have shows that we're watching that we'll just start going into those about what we think about each show. And obviously, being an opinionated show, you're not always going to agree on stuff. I think having the disagreements and stuff is fun. We try to keep it kid-friendly most of the time. I mean, 8 to 10 p.m. we do have Freudian slips. But we try to keep it, you know, appropriate for all ages. It's just important to me because you come to a convention I used to laugh with the voice actors. Is on air was the daytime panels, off air was the 18 plus panels. That's when things were let loose. And we thought about ideas of doing like 18 plus shows. We attempted to do some pre-recording on that. Only lasted a couple of times through Skype with voice actors or even just us talking, you know, adding in curse words, things of that nature, but none of that has been edited or made the light of day because, you know, you kind of build a brand, you kind of build a certain repertoire, and you kind of want to keep to it, but at the same time, I do, you know, experiment. Especially if you're new, experiment with different things, try to find out what you're comfortable with. The way that I have done the show for 8 years, I've changed my line of questioning. One thing that voice actors have told me that they appreciate about the show is when they come on the show, we try to make them feel comfortable. Just a normal chat, much like we're having here with questions and things of that nature. Also, I try to put the focus on the voice actor because a lot of us know, okay, Monica Rial was Mayorin in Black Butler, so you want to see her as Black. You don't see Monica, you see Mayorin a lot of times. And it's a very common thing. I've seen a lot of voice actors post on their social media about, you know, it's great you love the character I've been, but what about me as a person? So we try to focus a lot on, you know, from highlighting the voice actors themselves. So I like to ask a lot of questions that they probably don't get asked at conventions when I can. You know, you always hear the questions of how did you get started? And I've heard some interesting stories. You know, J. Michael Tatum got tricked into voice acting because of Christopher Bevins. Morgan Berry won a contest at HaberCon, a Todd Habercorn-based convention, for a audition at Funimation, and she's been working there for years now. So they have so many different stories of how they got started, but at the same time, getting to find out about, what goes through their head when they're in the booth and things of that nature, how they come up with the characters. I mean, all of us out here enjoy the work that the voice actors do. Some of us are even interested in how to get started in it, or how can I do it? And I mean, personally, I have no acting experience whatsoever, but it's something I would love to try. I think all of us would love to attempt something of that nature at some point. But, it's definitely been quite the ride talking with people. Yes?
Do you still have some anxiety when you start talking to someone that's maybe kind of and how do you work through that?
I have anxiety all the time when it comes to the show, and I was talking with some of the AV staffers who were setting things up before everybody came in here. The nerves, even 5 minutes before the panel started, when I saw people filing in, were through the roof. But at the same time, once it's like showtime, I've been told I have 2 modes. I have personal mode and then I have show mode. Apparently my voice changes and my persona changes and my whole body language and everything changes once it's time to go. Doesn't matter what's going on in my life, doesn't matter if I've had a good day, bad day, once it's go time, I'm able to just switch into that mode, and I think it's something that's mental that you'll develop over time. If you're new at this, once it's go mode, especially if it's outside of your comfort zone, when I first started doing internet radio, I was tripping over words. I still do that. I'm messing up a lot more than I do now, and there was a lot of try to get your thoughts going, because we all have the problem sometimes that we talk faster than we can think. And then that's also where you get sidetracked a lot, trying to get back on topic. But, trying to get, here's a perfect example, my brain just went, and what was your question? I don't know if I've answered it yet.
Anxiety regarding and how it feels with it. It seems like you've answered saying that basically you have an on mode and off mode. So you have a little switch where I'm turning off my panic frame, I'm turning on my game mode frame.
Yeah, that's I know for a lot of anime fans, going to a convention, the anxiety is there. I know people who have anxiety going to the store. People have anxiety just leaving their front door. And over time, you kind of just learn to deal with things, and just I force myself to do a lot of stuff outside of my comfort zone. Where, in high school, I was very quiet, very shy, kept to myself. I probably had maybe a total of 5 friends, or 5 people I would hang out with outside of school. If any of them knew that I do talk radio, I've talked with celebrities in all aspects of entertainment, not just voice actors. I've had Hollywood actors on the show. I've had I've become friends with a few Hollywood actors, like Giovanni Cruz. When Show by Rock Stars was announced as being dubbed and aired on Funimation, that day Giovanni Cruz sent me a message asking me if I'd watched it yet, because she knew how much I loved that show. And it caught me off guard. There's times even now, I'll get a message from a voice actor or an email from a voice actor, and it's like, holy crap. This is weird. I'm just a normal person. I work a normal job like everybody else, and these people I look up to are like, hey, can I come on the show, and things of that nature. And sometimes it blows my mind. But at the same time, when it becomes a passion, no matter what your hobby is, no matter what your anxiety is, you find a way to push through it. So that's, I think, what helps me is just, I love doing the talk radio. I love being able to entertain and provide information and bring people together. That's my drive of Anime-Zing Radio. Any other questions? Got about 5 minutes left. So I want to thank everybody for coming to my first panel here. Thank you so much for all the questions. I really wanted this to be an interactive panel. Hopefully I've answered a lot of the questions that you've had. Feel free to check us out on, like I said, on YouTube with under Anime-Zing, Z-I-G Radio. We have a lot of good content that we put up there. We got a lot of good guests that are in the works. The more that we table at conventions, we're going to have a live stream that we're going to do. I don't think I'm going to do another 6-hour live stream. Vermont Sci-Fi, I did 12 hours live in 2 days, and that's a lot of work. I was asked earlier how much time and effort I put into doing the show throughout the week, and like I said, it's on my mind from the moment I get up in the morning to when I finally fall asleep, and sometimes if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll have ideas. I'm a firm believer that if it's something you're passionate about and you can focus on, I'll be dead honest, when I started the show back in 2014, I had people who said they probably won't last a year. I never imagined I'd be sitting here 8 years later doing a panel at Anime Boston, have been press at multiple conventions, covered cons throughout New England, New York, and even been press at KatsuCon. I never thought that I'd be sponsoring conventions. We were proud sponsors of FujiCon's Pennsylvania show. We're going to sponsor the New Jersey show, and we're sponsoring the Fan Fest up in St. Albans, Vermont, Rail City Fan Fest. So it's amazing how far the show has gone and the experiences I've had. The best advice I can give is if you are truly passionate about whatever subject you want to podcast about, whether it's anime, video games, whatever the subject is, do it. Don't be afraid of the unknown. I mean, the unknown is a very scary thing to many people, but if you really want to do it, if you really want to be a podcaster or a VTuber or anything like that, if you have a true passion and a dream, follow it. Don't listen to what naysayers say, because you're always going to find people who are going to try to knock you down. The best, because I've had people who have badmouthed the show, people who have badmouthed me, and got the 5-minute mark over here. So it's just stay true to yourself, stay true to what you believe in, find people around you who are like-minded, who want to help you succeed as well, and just stay with it, because you never know when the big break is going to come. We've all seen pictures and anecdotes and stuff on social media of the person who gives up, who's digging a tunnel for years, gives up, and they were one shovelful away from hitting a treasure. The only time that I'm going to walk away from Anime-Zing Radio is if I can truly tell myself I am no longer enjoying what I'm doing. Until I hit that point of where I don't want to do it anymore, and I can convince myself 100% that I am done, that's when I'm going to walk away from the radio show. But until that point, I'm 44 years old. I watch anime like everybody else. I'm not ashamed to say I'm a 44-year-old cosplayer. People ask, when is it too old to stop cosplaying? Never. If you're in your 80s, 90s, and you want to cosplay, do it. If you have an idea for a comic or an art piece, draw it. Anything hold you back. Don't let health, obviously certain health conditions, if it's life-threatening, focus on that. But, I see you gentlemen with a wheelchair here. You have dreams, follow them. Don't let any handicaps hold you back. You see so many people who let stuff like that, use that as a crutch as to why they can't do it. COVID very easily could have killed the anime industry. Very easily could have killed the dubbing industry with, all the studios shutting down. Instead, Funimation gave out over 150 voice actor kits to their contracted voice actors to set up home studios. Yeah, we had to go without English dubs for a week or two, but then they slowly started coming back because they figured out a way around it. So definitely just follow your dreams. If it's something that you truly, truly love doing, stay with it. That's the most important message I can put out there. With AZR, this is something I truly, truly love doing. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it 8 years later. And I'm hoping that we can continue doing this for another 20, 30 years. Who knows where the anime industry will be? Who knows where it will be? We could be sitting here at Anime Boston 2052 and hope maybe doing a panel. Maybe be a featured guest, maybe doing a live show from Anime Boston. I think that would be a lot of fun. But, once again, I thank everybody so much for coming in tonight, tonight. I'm used to doing nighttime shows. Coming in this morning, and I hope everybody has an amazing Anime Boston 2022. Welcome back to Boston. Let's have an amazing year. Let's make this year so much better than last time. Definitely stick around for the panel coming up next. Our friend Take's got a cosplaying panel that you don't want to miss.